What if I told you there was a drug so powerful that it had infiltrated every single part of society, that you couldn't drive down a freeway, you couldn't walk up a street, you couldn't turn on a TV, and you couldn't walk inside a single store without being advertised this particular drug? Well, most people would think it was crazy. It doesn't matter what place you're talking about or which person you're thinking of, everybody will be affected by it. You will probably want to find out as much as you could about that drug. As humans, we pretty much all know that eating healthier and putting the best things inside of your body is going to lead to the best outcomes. We know that when you work out and when you treat your body with the utmost respect, you'll get the best out of it. If the greatest tool of the people who are truly against you is deception, maybe we need to rethink the way we look at drugs. What if the most powerful drugs on earth are food? From stores to screens, billboards and advertisements, it's everywhere. There's constantly someone trying to get you to eat and put the worst things possible inside of your body. So many people are living under the mistaken assumption that if they could just put in a certain amount of work, so many people spend years struggling, torturing themselves, trying to find a way to live a better and healthier life. So many people take years off of their lives because they can't control what they put into their mouths. So many people make the quality of their lives in the future far worse than what it needs to be. The foods you eat today are going to affect your quality of life in the future. So what are you going to do about it? Perhaps the most powerful, amazing, truthful, whatever you want to call the thing about food is, whether you know it or not, whether you understand what you're doing or not, your body is keeping an accurate diary, an accurate journal of how you treat it. In previous videos, I've spoken about how love is an action, not just a word or a thought, but it's the things you do. But when a person truly loves, we're able to see it through action. When a person truly cares, it's not just their words and thoughts, but it's the deeds that follow suit. And so if the food you eat consistently provides you with temporary relief but long-term problems, maybe it's time to rethink. If you've been trying to lose weight for a really long time, working hard, going to the gym, torturing yourself but never seeing results, maybe the solution is in the kitchen. It's been said that you can't outwork a bad diet, but it goes so much deeper than that. In order for a car to operate effectively and efficiently, it has to have the proper fuel. In order to charge your phone or electronic devices, you need the exact type of charger that it takes, otherwise it won't work. But what happens when the fuel that you use to power up your body's vehicle is the worst fuel possible? But what happens when the fuel that you use to fuel your body is no longer effective? What happens when you start to get to a point of diminishing returns? When your body isn't responding the way it needs to? When you don't have the fuel it takes, even though you've been getting the rest you needed? Yeah, it might be time to rethink some things. If there's one thing that I know about struggling with, it's weight. Over the course of my life, I've gone up and down in weight. And so today I want to talk about the idea of having a healthy relationship with food and nutrition. In a previous video, I talked about how your diet consists of everything. The things you watch, see, hear, think, people you talk to, all of it. And it's very true. But in today's video, we want to specifically talk about and focus on what exactly you eat and why. Because oftentimes when we are eating things that are bad for us, that slow us down, that tear us down, that take us to a place where we don't want to be, there's usually a reason behind it, and it's normally not because we logically thought it through. It's often connected to emotion. What happens when the foods you eat are based on the way you feel? Chances are, when the foods you eat are based on the way that you feel, there's a lot of room for you to fail. There's a lot of room for you to put the worst things possible in you. Life isn't fair. Sometimes it brings about anxiety and stress and difficulties, and you have to find different ways to cope with it. And so for many people, myself included, food can become a coping mechanism. When we're eating the worst things possible, when we're binging on pizza, when we're eating that ice cream, when we're putting the things in our body that don't give us the proper returns, it's normally for a reason. Humans are goal-oriented, and even if you're not aware or fully conscious or completely in control of the choices you're making, it's usually for a reason. There's usually a goal or desire or wish, something that you're seeking, something that you're trying to get by eating this food. When you're tired and stressed, you eat food. Have a long day, go to the fridge, eat something sweet or savory and delicious. But what happens when those things you eat only provide you with temporary relief? You can only eat for so long in a day. You can take the greatest pizza or fast food or whatever it is you think about. You can only eat it for so long, but it stays with you after that. And so eventually you got to start to question, what if you're actually sabotaging yourself and your future and that very happiness you seek by eating the food? What if the very food that you thought was bringing you comfort is actually dragging you down even worse? The food we eat is supposed to bring us energy and make us feel better. But if it brings you down, if it makes you feel slower, if you can't even move after you're eating, maybe you need to rethink. Maybe it's time for something different. The way you look says something about you. The way you present yourself says something about the way you feel about yourself. The person who consistently neglects their body is also probably consistently neglecting something else in their life. Maybe it's a stressor. Maybe it's a problem. Maybe it's something they know they need to be dealing with, but simply haven't found the courage to do. At the time of recording this video, it is September 2025. And so a big reason why I made this video is because I understand that there are so many people out there who, like me, have struggled with eating, have struggled with being disciplined and sticking to a plan, having a goal, setting targets, and then following through with them. I spent so much of my life not living up to my best potential, not being the greatest I can. Over the past few years, I've been making slow, incremental changes to improve my diet and fitness and overall lifestyle, investing in myself, because if I won't invest in me, how can I expect others to? Well, throughout this journey of mental, physical, and spiritual growth, there were some things that I had to confront within myself. The reasons why I hadn't been disciplined, the triggers that caused me to step out of line, the things that prevented me from reaching what my ultimate goal was. In my mind, in my heart, and through my words, I might express that I want to live a certain way and I want to reach a certain level of fitness, but my actions weren't following suit. And so I realized that if my actions were going to change, my mindset first had to. If thoughts precede action, I needed to change the way that I was thinking in order to be different. Because for me, and I can't speak for other people, for me, I've been really fortunate, blessed to have a body that's healthy and responds whenever I need to work out. I'm not a person who can say I'm facing the type of health issues that would prevent me from being healthy. So whatever weight I'm at, whatever level of fitness I'm at, is mostly a choice of my decisions. But even more than that, the way I look, the way I treat myself, the way I carry myself and present to the world is a direct reflection of what I really think about myself. Forget about what I say. Forget about what I tell people. How much can I really love myself if I'm constantly pouring the worst things into me? If I'm constantly choosing short-term pleasure over long-term gratification, how deep is my love for myself? At a certain point, I decided that it's no longer acceptable for me not to see myself at my best. And so with the same energy and effort that I invest into my business and goals, finances, education, all of these other things, I need to keep that exact same energy with my physical health and diet, because I'm so worth it. And again, if I'm not going to invest in me, if I'm not going to treat myself with the utmost respect, how could I ever expect others to? If I'm willing to consistently put poison into my body because it feels good for a short moment and it temporarily relieves me of whatever stress or anxiety I was dealing with, I got some bigger issues to deal with. And so I started to face them. I can't speak for anybody else, but I know that for me, my body keeps an accurate diary of how I'm treating myself. So when I'm out of shape, when I'm unfit, when my body is sore and tired, it's generally because I haven't chosen to be intentional about my actions. I haven't been goal-oriented. I haven't been focused. I haven't been disciplined. I have been choosing short-term gratification over long-term goals and consistency. And I'm not willing to accept such a lifestyle. For me, I can literally see how much I'm loving myself based on what my body is doing. Everything that I need in order to be fit and healthy is within my control. I have the finances, the resources, the mental know-how, and the ability to do it. The only thing missing was dedication and intentionality, focus and persistence, and me deciding more than anything what the priority was. If the priority is short-term pleasure and feeling good right now, you're going to eat the pizza and you're going to eat the bad stuff. But the older I get, I know I gotta start thinking more long term. I gotta start thinking longevity. I don't do this thing for a quick sprint. I'm in it for the long run. I wanna build and grow and watch this thing become the best that it can. But how can I do that if I'm not even here to enjoy it? They say that health is wealth, and when you don't have it, nothing else matters. If I told you I would give you $1 billion, but tomorrow would be your last day on earth, the money would mean nothing. At the same time, if I told you I would completely drain your bank account, but give you the healthiest, fittest, best body you could possibly ever have, I would take that deal every single day. If you told me that my body would have no aches and pains, that I would be completely healed. So if I know for a fact that there are very few gifts, very few things that I could give myself that would be better than health, how dare I not give it to myself? How dare I distract myself from doing what it takes in order to achieve the level I'm capable of? It wasn't until I said no more being average, no more underachieving, no more lack of discipline, no more not being your best. You're capable of more, and so we'll do more. If you ever seen it in my videos, you know I got a big thing about regret. I'm not willing to look back on the past and wonder, what if I would have taken my shot? What if I would have given it my all? Well, as more and more life gets behind me and more wisdom comes to me, eventually I got to wake up to my own reality and question myself and look in the mirror and say, if you weren't living up to the greatest you could be, why? What are you waiting on? And so that's what I did. And by the way, if you want the excuses, they're gonna be there. The advertisements are effective. The temptation is consistent. There's always somebody trying to pull your attention. And if you choose to be weak, if you choose to allow them, it's gonna happen. But you gotta choose to allow them to make it happen. And that's the thing that we often tend to forget. Yes, there are companies that want you to drive through the fast food line and order whatever it is, or buy the sugary cereal, or get the sweet food, or whatever the thing is that's gonna make you worse off. But you get a choice. You don't have to pick up that thing that you know is gonna slow you down, that you know every single time you eat it, you feel like you can't even move afterwards. You choose it. And so when you choose discomfort, when you choose laziness, when you choose to underachieve, when you choose to put the worst things inside of your body, what do you deserve but underachievement? You deserve to have a body that doesn't fully function. You deserve to have a body that doesn't perform at peak performance. This is what I'm telling to myself because I know it's true. And so that's what I did. When it comes to your diet and the things you eat, for the most part, nobody is coming to save you. So if you want to get this thing under control, you got to be the one to do it. And here's the other thing. For a person like me, I don't have a problem with going to the gym and working out. In fact, when I go to the gym, I put in some real work. Maybe I'm not always the most consistent, but the truth is, you don't have to be a super bodybuilder in order to have a fit body. Because no amount of working out and hitting the gym hard can undo the damaging effects of a bad diet. It's so hard to burn 1,200 calories in the gym, but to eat 1,200 calories in one sitting could be as simple as having a burger or shake or coffee or a bowl of ice cream. But it's up to you to do the research to figure out what works. And it's not rocket science. For the most part, we know what works and what doesn't. Fruits and vegetables are good. Whole foods are good. The simpler, the better. The more processed, the worse. The more you eat and the more you overconsume, the harder it's going to be for your body to digest it. If we are what we eat and we consistently put food in our bodies that's low quality, below what's acceptable, not going to give us what we need, why would our performance look any different? Why would our ability to execute and be present and just live in the moment be any different? You're constantly putting the worst things into your body, but you're expecting your mind to be able to perform. It's not going to happen. And I understand how delicious the sweet and salty and savory foods can be. I get it. I understand that if it's constantly being pumped into your face, it's that much harder to resist the temptation. Right? We're constantly being tempted. But if you're driven by your goals, if you're driven by a sense of purpose, if you're driven by something greater than the short-term gratification of whatever thing you were going to eat, you'll overcome it. But you have to decide to make the choice. The older you get in life, the more wisdom you acquire, the more you start to realize. In fact, some of the things that bring us the best pleasure in the short term actually lead to long-term destruction. And so when you talk about people who struggle with addiction, who struggle with substances, it's not the moment in which they're in it where everything is bad. It's everything surrounding it. In the moment, the thing you do may feel amazing. In the moment, eating certain things, drinking certain things, having certain experiences may seem like not that big of a deal. But if the moments after, if long term, it's leading to nothing but destruction and negativity, when do you wake up? The other thing I had to realize is I'm not just eating the food because the food is so delicious. When I really do the math and break it down, the actual time I spend eating pizza, one of my biggest cheat meals, the thing that I used to eat the most, abuse the most, was pizza. Well, if I add up the actual time I spend eating the pizza, it's really short. But when I flip the dynamic and I compare it to just how much time that pizza that I ate stays with me, there's no way I could justify eating as much pizza as I was and getting away with it. Maybe I'm watching a TV show while I'm eating it. Maybe at the most, the whole thing lasts an hour or two. The process of me actually partaking of the food might only last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, even if it lasts a couple of hours. How much longer will it stay with me after the meal is over? As delicious as the pizza would be in the moment, as good as it would make me feel in the moment, afterwards, when I got to carry around all that extra weight, it didn't make me feel so good. The next day when I don't have the energy I need to perform at peak level, that's when it's a problem. But in the exact moment in which I'm eating the pizza, it feels good. And maybe even the moment leading up to it, it might seem like a good idea. But the moment it's over and the moment I'm done, I know. And so part of what I did was decided to make a change. Instead of leaving it up to chance, I built in structure into my schedule that would make it much easier for me to make good decisions. Instead of going to the grocery store and buying whatever looked good or fancy, if you go with the list, you'll do a lot better. There's so many products inside of a grocery store that you probably wouldn't even be able to think of on your own if they weren't right there in front of you. But because somebody gets paid to produce and market and make sure that people like you are tempted by it, you got to make sure you're extra intentional about making sure you don't fall for whatever propaganda they're trying to pull on you. The goal of the grocery store isn't to make you as healthy as possible, it's to make as much money as possible. The goal of the food manufacturer isn't to make you as healthy as possible, it's to make as much money as possible. Well, if the stores aren't looking out for you, and the companies aren't looking out for you, and the advertisers aren't looking out for you, and the people who they pay to market the products aren't looking out for you, if all of these people aren't looking out for you, who is? First and foremost, it has to be you. You got to be as intentional about your food as you are your goals. As intentional about crafting your diet as you are everything else in your life. That's a priority. When things are important, we tend to take them serious. We might write them down. We develop a plan and we execute. Certainly discipline is involved, but also creating a structure that allows you to be successful is also involved. Creating routines and habits are also involved. If you know that on a stressful day, passing by a fast food joint is a really tempting thing for you, maybe you need to go a different way. Maybe you need to make sure that there's no way possible you can do it. Because oftentimes, if you can be strong just for a little bit longer, if you can hang on just for a little bit more, you'll be able to get the goals that you were seeking. A lot of times when you're in the grocery store, if you could just not buy one or two extra things, if you could just not indulge when you're in the grocery store, if you can tell yourself, no, I don't need that item, I won't get this thing, I won't slip and fall, I'm only here to get what I came here to get, there's no way you won't win. If your mind is open to being tempted, if you don't have any goals, if you couldn't care less about creating a specific and dedicated plan for what it is you eat, you're probably going to achieve exactly what you plan to, which is nothing. And let me make it clear, I'm not here to tell you or anybody else what they should do, because should isn't an absolute thing. Should often doesn't even come into play unless a certain thing is true. If you are trying to be fit, then you should take care of your diet. If you are trying to be healthy, then you should focus on longevity. If you want to live a life that is fruitful, where you can live into your later years in a way that is healthy, where you can still move, where you're still active, where you still have full control over your body, then you need to be intentional about the things you put into your body, because they matter a lot more than you realize. And at a certain point, you can't keep burning the candle at both ends. You know for a fact that they're going to use bright and colorful boxes to attract kids to shiny kids food. You know for a fact they're going to use rich, flavorful smells and tones and whatever else to get you to that savory, delicious food that they want you to buy. But what's it going to do to you? How's it going to make you feel? Most of the food in the grocery store wouldn't exist if we didn't create it first. There's a really small section of it. I don't care what grocery store you're talking about. For the most part, when you walk into a grocery store, there's a small section of fresh produce, fruits, and things that are like one ingredient, meats that are fresh, one ingredient, and everything else is frozen and processed and chemicals and all of these different things that you have no idea where they come from or how they make them. You could give most people thousands of years and they would never be able to create cereal or candy bars or ice cream or whatever processed food you could think of. But the fact that they're so readily available in such abundance at such low prices should give us a little bit of cause to pause. And if it hasn't up until now is your chance to wake up. It's one thing to not know, but once you've been informed, now you got to do something about it. If you know your body isn't performing how you need to, wake up. The next time you go to the grocery store and you're thinking about buying that super processed food, the thing that you have no idea how to make, look at the ingredients. Read the chemicals. Does it sound like love when you're reading all of these processed names that you have no idea what they are? I'm going to go ahead and say no. But you know exactly what spinach is, or broccoli, or grapes, or bananas, or strawberries, or whatever the healthy thing. There's enough of it. The problem is you simply aren't choosing it. But today can be different. If you know for a fact that what you're doing is causing you harm, that's slowly leading to your downfall and your destruction, and you do it anyway, that sounds like an addiction. And the first step to overcoming an addiction is to admit and recognize that you have one. It's hard to overcome a food addiction if you can't even acknowledge that it's there. It's hard to overcome a bad diet if you can't admit that you have one. So if you know for a fact that the foods you eat, the drinks you eat are not paying dividends, take inventory and make a change. Another thing that helps is doing research. And I do understand that at certain points in time, it can be a bit overwhelming because it seems like everything is bad for you. One minute people are saying you can eat this, the next minute it's bad. One minute you should eat this type of diet, the next minute you should completely avoid it. Well, the truth of the matter is, just don't get complicated. For the most part, as long as you're eating whole, healthy foods, as much fresh fruits and vegetables as possible, you're going to be good. It's not until you start creating these fancy diets, these fad diets that you can't sustain, that you have a problem. The number one thing that makes most diets fail is the fact that they were temporary. If you have a goal of losing 10 or 15 pounds, and in order to do it, you gotta starve yourself, or you're only eating certain foods that you know you can't sustain, once you stop doing the thing, you're gonna immediately revert back. In fact, you may even slide back further than where you were at first, simply because of the recoil effect. So you gotta be really intentional about consistently building the habit of not overindulging, of putting the right things in you. Because the other thing that we don't talk about enough with all of the creative food is some things are so good, some things are so delicious, you shouldn't even have access to them. When we think about man-made drugs that get people addicted, you couldn't even find them in nature. But somehow, some way, we found different ways to circumvent and disrupt and do different things to nature that would never naturally occur. And we create forces so powerful that we can't control them. And there's plenty of forces in life that are like this. We'll get into more of them in future videos. But for now, we're just talking about food. The greatest gardener ever never produced a box of cereal. The greatest gardener ever never produced a gallon of ice cream. The best green thumb you ever saw in your life never produced a big processed bag of chips. But due to science, innovation, and capitalism, here we are. And I'm not even saying to never indulge in the sweet things, for life is meant to be lived. But there must be a balance. There's no way on earth you're going to eat 50% bad and 50% good and think that life is going to come out 100% great. It's simply not going to work. Save the trash for the 5% of the time that you're on vacation. Save the awful foods, the processed stuff, for when you simply have no other choice. When you have access to the knowledge, when you know better, you can do better. And so for me, when I think about all of the above surrounding food, there's no way that much of the country, if not the world, isn't addicted to food right now. And so when I think about everything, in summation, many of us do have an unhealthy relationship with food. Many people are addicted to sugars and sweets and processed foods, but it's never too late to change and be intentional. Certainly you're constantly being advertised to. Certainly there's money in you eating the bad processed foods, but there's also rewards and greatness and prosperity and you choosing to be intentional and only put the best inside of you. By the way, one of those rewards is you save a lot more money. You may think you're saving money by buying that processed food. You may think that you're saving a little bit of money in the short term by buying a much cheaper alternative. But what happens when you get that hospital bill 10, 15 years down the line and now you can't afford it? What happens when 20, 30 years down the line, you can no longer sustain a healthy lifestyle and now you need medical attention because you wouldn't eat the things that were good for you? Maybe in the short term you do save a couple of bucks, but if in the long term it costs you your health, it wasn't worth it. Let's be really intentional about what we put into our body, because the people who are marketing to us are super intentional about making sure that you get a certain message. But in order to combat that, and in order to make sure that it doesn't go too far in the wrong way, you gotta be intentional about telling yourself the right thing. If they're telling you to buy our product because it'll make you feel X, Y, and Z, you gotta be intentional about telling yourself not to, or at least to limit it when it comes to most foods that are bad for you but are marketed as delicious or good. Much of what they're selling you on is a feeling of short-term pleasure. If you come to our restaurant and eat this really unhealthy food, you'll feel really good. You'll laugh and you'll have a good time. And in that moment, it's going to feel like everything. But what happens when you walk into your car and your breathing is a little bit different? What happens when you've been eating bad for years and years and now your breathing is just a little bit louder whenever you go to sleep? Or your blood pressure is a little bit higher. Your life expectancy is a little bit lower. Your quality of life, years and years of eating the worst things, is eventually going to affect you in ways that you cannot reverse. Lower quality of life, less athleticism, less ability to move and be active. And there's no way on earth your health is worth the sacrifice of that short-term delicious food. Because as delicious as it is in that really short moment, it always pales in comparison to the much longer effects of whatever it's doing to you. But there is a silver lining, and it's oh so beautiful, because the same way that eating that bad food consistently is going to lead to long-term problems, eating the best foods is going to lead to long-term success. If for the last month or 2 or 3 you cut out all of the worst things you've been eating and replace it with only the best, you will immediately begin to see dividends. You'll immediately see growth and your body will begin to heal itself. And that's just a few months. What happens if for the next 10, 15, 20, or 30 years you are on top of your diet? You make sure that you only put the best of the best inside of you. How much better could your body perform? How much more could you get done? How much more efficient could you be with simply executing on your dreams? What happens when you shift from a mindset of thinking that eating fruits and vegetables is optional to knowing and understanding that it's critical and that it has to be the foundation of whatever it is you eat. How often do you drive down the highway and you see billboards for fruits and vegetables compared to fast foods? It's crazy. How often do you scroll through your phone or watch TV or whatever medium you think of and you see all sorts of advertisements or directions for you to eat things that aren't the best for you? And what makes matters even more complicated is some of the stuff that they market for you as being healthy is actually some of the worst stuff for you. Perhaps one of the most dangerous things is low carb this, diet that, low calorie this, no sugar that. They're so good at presenting food that's unhealthy as healthy. And so at a certain point you got to question. When the advertisers and marketers are so good at presenting you with food that's absolutely horrible for you, but they make it seem like it's good, you know you got a problem. And truthfully, if I had to guess, I don't think the government is coming to save you either, because if they are, they would have by now. When we look at the #1 killers of people in the world, especially the United States, we think about things like diabetes and high blood pressure and the C word and all of these other health ailments. So many of them are preventable if we could just get that diet under control, if we could just get that lifestyle in check. Maybe add to our fitness regime, we could make such an impact. But by choosing to neglect it, by not understanding just how important it is, we end up losing so many of our best. When we start to lose our loved ones, the people in our lives who shine the brightest, all because they didn't know or weren't able to act out on giving themselves the best as far as diet, I think that's when it's time to start waking up. Because I do want to live a long and healthy and prosperous life, but I also want the people around me to do the same. Because if I'm healthy and good, but the people around me aren't, what's the point of even doing it? Part of the benefit of building community is the love that comes with it. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to love, love isn't about being a yes man or telling people what they want to hear. And so for me, when I think about love, it's not enough to simply think it or feel it. I must actually do something. It's not enough to know in my heart of hearts what's right and say nothing. I gotta be heard. I gotta speak up. Because if I can extend just one life a little bit longer, if I can keep one more person from shedding just another tear because they lost a loved one far too soon, because of something that was preventable, how could I not? I wish I could sit here before you and tell you that I hadn't lost some of the greatest people I've ever known to things that were completely preventable, but I have. And so if I know for a fact there's something I could do that could prevent somebody else from feeling what I felt in those moments, how dare I not do so? That's what this is. That's what the infinite evolution is about. Helping others understand and become their best self while also doing the same for you. And it's consistency over everything. The truth is, when a person is really out of shape and really overweight, or super in shape, super fit, super where they need to be, neither of those realities happened in one moment. Neither person flipped the switch and became who they are. Years and years and years of consistency must have preceded. And before the years preceded, there must have been some months. And before the month, there must have been some days and some moments. And before the moments, there must have been some thoughts. So what's going on in your mind? What's going on in that head of yours? What are you doing when it comes to your diet? What are you thinking when it comes to the food you eat? What are you telling yourself when it comes to nutrition? How important is it? How much will you prioritize it? And how much longer will you wait in order to become your best? About a month ago, I decided to do something different, to chase physical greatness on a level that I never have. And it started by changing my habits, diets, thinking, and routine. Last month, I decided no more pizza, no more fast food. And even though it's only been just over 30 days, the benefits have been immense. And I'm going to keep going with it. I'm not telling you I'll never eat pizza again. I'm not telling you I'll never have fast food again. But what I'm saying is I spent so much time indulging, so much time being undisciplined, so much time not being at my peak, so much time not feeling what I could be physically, that I'm ready for the reverse, that I'm ready for better, that I'm ready for growth. I'm ready for my infinite evolution. I'm ready to see myself live up to the peak of my performance, and I'm ready to stop making excuses. I don't remember who it was, but I believe it was a Greek philosopher who talked about how it's a shame for a man to grow up and never know the true potential of what his body could become. When I hear that quote, it hits deep. Because I know for a fact what I'm capable of, and I know for a fact what I've been given. And I'm not a person who can say, health-wise, physically, I can't get it. I know for a fact that I should be at a level, and so I'm going to do everything I can in order to reach it. You can too, because where I am didn't happen in one day or a week or even a month. I'm willing to consistently put in the work, consistently set the goals, consistently have a plan that will allow me to achieve success. If I start by removing the two biggest impediments to my success, That's a really good start. No fast food, no pizza. That's really good. But then I got to replace it with something else. I joined a couple of run clubs, and so not only am I putting in the work, but I'm doing it within community. Well, whether you join a run club, whether you're doing push-ups in the basement by yourself, whether you're walking around the park, whether you're doing jumping jacks or toe touches, whether all you can do is raise up a hand, it doesn't matter where you start. The most important thing is that you start. It doesn't matter if you're perfect from the beginning. What matters is that you have a goal and a plan that's well researched, purpose driven, and that you're willing to actually do what it takes in order to execute. The road to success is not complicated. The road to success is always going to be paved with temptations and pitfalls. There's always going to be something that seems to get in your way. And if you allow it, it's going to become worse. If you tell yourself that it's acceptable, then it will become acceptable. If you tell yourself there's nothing wrong with having that bad food or indulging in this really bad thing because right now you're stressed, there's no reason why you won't do it. But if you tell yourself that even in this moment where things are going good, even though I had a long day, I'm not going to make it worse. I'm not going to compound it by doing even worse by my body, by doing my physical a disservice, you'll see the benefits. You'll become better, and there's no way on earth you won't reach your infinite evolution. The food you eat affects your body's internal plumbing system. If you want your body to work like a well-oiled machine, you have to treat it like one. Daily maintenance, consistent upkeep, putting only the best of the best in it and not compromise it because you think it was a good idea in the moment. If you want to use the car analogy, sometimes when you're driving in a car, it might seem like a good idea to make a risky move when you're driving. And it might seem like having that bad thing one time is no big deal. But just like when you're driving, one quick swerve could change your life. One wrong move could change everything. It's the same with the diet. If you know for a fact that you got years of doing the wrong thing, maybe you don't need to be tiptoeing around temptation. Maybe what you need to do is be as simple as possible, as structured as possible, with a plan that you can execute. And again, we don't want to make this thing complicated. If you're thinking too much, it's going to be too hard. We all got to choose between short-term gratification and long-term consistency, but there are certain things you could do to make the choice that much easier. People often think that money changes everything, that it's a heal-all and a super band-aid, that once you get the money, you can pay for a trainer or you can buy the food or whatever, but I would actually submit to you the opposite. For even though you have access to better things, you also have access to the ability to afford whatever it is you couldn't before. So if in your current situation you face some sort of budgetary restrictions where you can't buy every single thing you want, if in fact you were able to get to a point where you had the money and resources to buy whatever you wanted, you want to make sure that once you get to that place, you've also built the discipline to know that you don't need to. A person who's never been in control of their diet probably shouldn't be given millions of dollars because they won't know what to do with it. The person who's never been good with money but all of a sudden hits the lottery typically doesn't know what to do with it and backslides. But the same thing often happens with people who try to take shortcuts or look for different ways to circumvent the process that got them there. Again, I don't want to spend too much time speaking for everybody else. I'm mostly speaking about myself. I know for a fact that I didn't get here in one day. I know for a fact that there was a process that got me here. And so there must be a process that I can undo or reverse engineer that will get me out of it. I dug myself into this hole. I'm more than happy and willing to dig myself out of it. And in doing so, it's going to do something to me that I simply could not make up. Whatever it is you need to do for yourself that works, do it. I'm not here to pass judgment. If you're at a place where you have to take certain medical procedures, I'm not here to tell you not to. I'm only speaking about myself. And for myself, I know that I've dug myself into a hole that I'm highly capable of getting myself out of. And that if and when I do get myself out of this hole, I'm going to be a different type of beast. I'll evolve into the best version of myself possible, and this is my favorite part, I'll be able to share some of that energy with the people around me, because I don't want to be the only person living that long, healthy life. I want it to be all of us. And once I do hit that point where my body is starting to feel peak again, I feel pretty good about the fact that my spirit will also be in good strength, that my mental will also be in good strength, because they all follow suit. If my body is strong, it generally means my mind was stronger. If my mind was strong, it generally means I did enough to make sure my spirit was first. Thought precedes action, and it's that spirit and purpose that's going to drive the thinking that eventually leads to the action that sets up your success. And don't get me wrong, I know about the high prices. I know that sometimes it may seem that eating healthier is far more expensive, but in the long run, we know that health is wealth. There's no point of acquiring massive amounts of wealth if I'm a hoarder to myself. So I want to not only spread the love and knowledge that I've been given, but I want to spread the wealth of health that I've been given too. And it starts one moment at a time, one meal at a time, one decision at a time, one choice at a time. and you're so capable of it. One of the most common phrases we hear in today's era of technology is the algorithm. Well, the same way your phone has an algorithm and your social media has an algorithm, your Netflix has an algorithm, so does your diet, so does your health, so does your well-being. And if you're not intentional and purpose-driven when it comes to yours, how can you ever reach your best? This is the infinite evolution, because at the end of the day, our bodies are all keeping an accurate record of how we live, what we think, and where our priorities are. This is the infinite evolution.